Hello again, YouTube. It's Emoneyblue and Little E. We're going to be doing a beer today we call the Emoneyblue 909 Amber beer, and it's an all-grain brew. With software we're using here to come up with this recipe is Pro Mash. We figured out what we wanted, temperature we wanted, the water, everything is all inside the software. You can get really technical with it, or you can just do a simple recipe or follow along with another recipe, but it'll give you that's our water right there, testing our water out. There's our recipe we came up with, your efficiency. It'll go through everything with you. Alright, let's get brewing. Here's what you're going to need. We're going to do 10 pounds of 2-row and a pound of Crystal 40, a pound of Crystal 90, and a half pound of biscuit. And we're going to come up with this amber beer. It's a beautiful color. We're going to have the 2 cascades we're going to put in, but we're going to use the Northern Brewer as the bittering hops. And we're going to put that in at 60 boil, and we're going to put the other one in at 25 to 30 in the last 15 minutes. Here's our grain, our 2-row. Before we mill it, it's 10 pounds. This is before the mill. Actually, try them. They're crunchy. They taste almost like sunflower seed, just a little crunchier. You notice it's about a third of this container down. But after we crush the grain, you'll notice it's actually fluffed up quite a bit. Here's our grain mill hooked up to our drill. Just put a little bit in at a time. Just grind all 10 down. Well, it's actually the 10 plus the other 2.5, so it's a total of 12.5 pounds. Always check the temperature of your grain, so when you go for your strike temperature, you'll be right on deck. Here we are set up outside. It's pretty windy today. It's going to rain. Actually, it rained quite heavily here in Arizona. But I'm going to add in a little bit of pH balance. I need 1 tablespoon. We're going to go ahead and add that to the mash tun before we even put the grain in. Add it in with just a little water to bring the mash tun up to temperature. If you're wondering why I put the other 2.5 pounds straight into the bucket, is because when I got them from my local brew store, they had them milled there for me. Just going to add in about a gallon to 2 gallons of water to get started. So as we add in the grain, we'll have something to mix with and won't have any dry spots. Here's our 12.5 pounds of grain. We'll put it in to the mash tun in thirds. Add a little bit, mix. If it's too dry, add a little more water, mix until you get it all mixed in and it's all good and wet. If you've never brewed beer before, the smell of brewing beer is delicious. It smells so good. Exactly. Here we're just trying to make sure we got a good mix. You don't want to have any dry spots. You want to make sure you can extract as much of the sugars from out of the grain as possible. Always use a timer. Now we're going to start the Vorlauf process. We're going to run it on low until it comes out nice and clear. Then we're going to transfer that to our boil kettle. While we rinse the grains with the water from our hot water tank. Now we have wort. In order to do this brew, the computer software estimated just shy of 11 gallons of water needed. It calculated the water that was left in the kettle, actually in both kettles, what was left in the lines, what was left in the mash tun, and when it was all said and done, we had just shy of 5.5 gallons left, with a half gallon going into the bottom of the boil kettle. It calculated almost perfect. Here I am adding in my first hop addition, which I should have put into a stocking or a grist bag, but I forgot and just dumped it in. So that way I had to strain it to make sure I don't put that into my pumps. But I remembered and I added it into the second hop addition, and the final flavoring hops was added in bags. Remember, once you get that rolling boil, you want to drop your fire down to keep a rolling boil so you don't have a boil over. I actually had a slight boil over you didn't see on camera. Well, I didn't want you to see. Turn it down. Here I had to use a funnel with a strainer to strain out the bittering hops I put in the beginning. It wasn't much, and a lot of it stayed at the bottom of the boil kettle, but I just wanted to make sure. Believe it or not, the chiller has it at less than 70 degrees going into the fermenter bucket. I'm going to take this cooled down wort and pour it into this fermenter and use it over the old slurry that I had from the brew I just took off. Here's what happened 3 hours after I put it on the slurry. In just 3 hours. Here I had to add a blow-off tube because it filled up everything and made a big mess. And you'll see 24 hours later, it blew the top off. And you can see the kind of action we got going on in there with the yeast. This was actually 2 packs of yeast that I pitched for a 10-gallon batch that I put into one fermenter to go with this 5-gallon. She's a working.